Here,
I think 1 minute is remaining, if I am not wrong.
Yes.
So we can start after 1 minute. Kamal sir, are you there?
Yes, made sir as co-host.
Sir is there?
yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir is
I have
there.
joined.
Oh, okay, sir. Should I start? Already three?
Sir, Madam has joined. Madam
Yes.
Jayanti.
Everyone
Okay.
has joined, sir. All the
Yes,
four
sir, I'm
people
there.
are joined, sir, today.
Congratulations, Madam. Nalini, Madam. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Sir.
Sir, we can start. Thank you.
Yes. So good afternoon to everybody, all respected executives of the NPT and dear participants. In the last 2 weeks, we have completed 4 sessions of GCP on overview of good clinical practice, responsibilities of stakeholders in clinical trial protocol, informed consent process, and responsibilities of ethics committee. Also, NPT has uploaded the PPT as well as video recording of the on the dashboard. Last week, due to technical reasons, I was not able to complete my presentation. So, if anybody is having any question re- related to my topic, they can put the question in the chat box, and I am going to answer it. Now today again we are having two new topics. First is on ICMR 2017 guidelines, which will be taken by Dr. M. Jayanti Madam, and the second session is on 7 features of NDCT Rule 2019 by Dr. Mulalini Kaikar Madam. The first session will be moderated by Dr. Dinesh Badial sir. So presently sir is working as professor and head department of pharmacology, as well as sir is vice principal at CMC Ludhiana, Punjab. Sir is also program director of CMCL Femur Regional Institute. Also, sir is acting as convener NMC Nodal Center, National Convener NMC Advanced Course in Medical Education. All of you know that sir is also chief editor of National Journal of Pharmacology and Therapeutics. Sir is also convener of NMC Expert Group for MD Pharmacology Curriculum 2022, and Sir has awarded n number of awards like Dr. APJ Kalam Memorial Oration, Dr. Rita Sood Memorial Oration, Professor G. Acharya Oration, Sri Ganni Satyanarayan Memorial Oration, and ML Gupta Award. At the same time, Sir is having good research, and more than 200 publications are there, and sir is also author of 4 books. I welcome you, Dr. Badial sir, for the session. The second session will be moderated by Dr. Devesh Gosavi sir, who is presently working as professor and head Department of Pharmacology, Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Medical Sciences, Sevagram, Wardha, Maharashtra. Sir is also acting as member secretary of the Institutional Ethics Committee at MGIMS Wardha. Sir is also acting as coordinator Adverse Drug Reaction Monitoring Center, and he is also coordinator for Internal Quality Assurance Committee for NAC accreditation. He is also assistant editor for Journal of MGIMS. The name of the journal is JMGIMS. Sir is also having more than 34 research papers in national as well as international journals, and sir is also a member of Indian Pharmaceutical Society and National Physiological Society along with the NPT. I also welcome you sir for the session. Now I request
Good afternoon,
Dr.
everybody.
Badial sir
Yes,
to
sir.
introduce the first speaker, Dr. Jayanti Madam. The first session will be for 25 minutes, which will be followed by question and answer session for 10 minutes. Over to Dr. Badial sir to
Thank
introduce
you.
the today's speaker, Dr. Jayanti Madam.
Thank you, Dr. Ganesh. And the first speaker is Dr. M. Jayanti, who is presently working as professor at JIPMER Pondicherry. She has 18 years of experience of teaching and guided more than 20 MBBS, MD, and PhD projects. She is former HOD Pharmacology and member secretary of Ethics Committee for Interventional Studies at JIPMER and chairperson of IRB at PIMS College of Nursing, Puducherry. Ma'am has more than 60 papers and she is also a member of various bodies. So I hand over to ma'am and invite you to go ahead with your session.
It is visible,
My screen
madam.
is visible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Badial sir, for the kind introduction. I also wish to thank Professor Ganesh Dakle and Professor Kamal sir for giving me this opportunity. So good afternoon to all the participants present here. So in the next 25 minutes, I will be talking on this topic, ICMR Bioethical Guidelines 2017 and overview. So I'll be giving a brief introduction to ethics and the need for ethical guidelines, an overview of the ICMR guidelines, and some case discussions if the time permits. Now, why are we talking so much about ethics? So what is this ethics? So it is derived from the Greek word, which means custom or character, and it deals basically with the choices we make and our actions in respect to those choices. So therefore, ethics is very important. It's a part and parcel of our life. So when it comes to healthcare, so how, what is the importance of ethics? So there is a need to distinguish between what is practice ethics and research ethics, because many a time the patients especially are confused whether it is a research which they are subjected to, or is it a treatment, especially when the PI is their treating physician as well. So whether it is practice ethics or research ethics, what is common to both is the fundamental principles. Now, what are the fundamental principles of ethics? Now, I'm sure all of you will be listing them. So they are beneficence and non-maleficence, that is doing good and not doing any harm. Justice and equality, considering all the patients or participants of research equal without any discrimination with respect to caste, creed, religion, or socioeconomic status. And equally important is the autonomy, which means the freedom for the participant to take informed decisions whether to participate in research as well as with respect to their own treatment. Now, what is different in both this, that is practice and research ethics? We know that if it is practice, that is therapy, the best available methods are the medicines which are time tested, proven, and considered potentially safe only will be administered. Whereas with respect to research, especially interventional research, an unproven or a risky procedure or treatment is given. So therefore, there is always a risk here. Then how to conduct research ethically? So to conduct research ethically, we can follow the guidelines which are available to us. Now, how did these guidelines evolve? There is a long history. I'm sure all of you are very much aware of this, right? Starting from the Nuremberg Code in 1947, followed by Declaration of Helsinki, Belmont Report, several other guidelines, the GCP guidelines, which have all framed the conduct of how to conduct research by the researchers. Now, ICMR also has come up with several of these guidelines. So, starting with the 1980 policy statement on biomedical research, which was constituted under Justice Khanna, and this was followed by the 2000 ethical guidelines for biomedical research. There it was referred to as in human subjects. But subsequently in 2006, it was renamed ICMR Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical Research on Human Participants. And then there were several amendments which had come up, especially in 2013. So several changes were introduced as per the needs of the requirement of research at that time, and they were all published in the form of gazetted notifications. So all this was compiled together, and we have the 2017 National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical Research involving participants, which each and every researcher in India must follow. So coming to this booklet, which is freely available as a PDF online, you can download it. So there are 12 sections here. And if you look at the ones which are marked in red, they are the newer sections which have been added in when compared to the 2006 version of the guideline. So that is the responsible conduct of research, social and behavioral science research, humanitarian emergencies, also research with involving that. And the ones which are marked in brown, so they were there earlier, but they have been expanded into separate chapters, like the informed consent. There is a section on vulnerability and biological materials and biobanking. And there is also a section on public health research. Now we'll go into details of each of these sections. The first section is on statement of the general principles. Here, the fundamental principles have been expanded into 12 principles. So it talks about the essentiality of research by considering the available information at that time. So what are all the alternate options available? The research should be essential, and that has to be put into the protocol. So this research has to be conducted in such a way that there is voluntariness among the participants and there is no exploitation in the form of any coercion or any other exploitation should not be there in the research. And the researcher must ensure that the research is directed towards enhancing the knowledge while maintaining sensitivity towards the Indian cultural, social, the beliefs and practices, as well as the natural environment. And there should be a provision of ensuring privacy as well as confidentiality with respect to the participant as well as the data which is collected. And wherever possible, there should be minimization of the risk while maximization of the benefits of the research. And there should be transparency and accountability throughout, from the beginning of protocol, designing and conducting research, as well as up till sharing the results in the form of conferences or in publications. And there should be professional competence with respect to the research team as well as the team which is reviewing the research, that is the ethics committee. Professional competence should be in the form of both knowledge as well as the experience of the people involved in this research. So next section talks about the general ethical issues. So under this, there is mention about the assessment of benefit and risk, which should be done at the level of the sponsor, researcher, the ethics committee, as well as the regulators, to ensure there is maximum benefit and minimal risk involved. And coming to privacy and confidentiality, what is mentioned here? Privacy refers to the rights of the individuals, like what information they can share with the research team and what they do not wish to share. Whereas confidentiality refers to the collected information, protecting the confidentiality of the information such that the information doesn't get leaked to people who are unauthorized and who are not part of the research. And with respect to justice, the benefits as well as the risks has to be equally distributed among the participants, whether it is individual or the community. And whenever the participants have to travel, for example, for the research purpose specifically, then there should be a provision to reimburse for the travel, for the food, as well as for if any loss of wages is applicable. And with respect to any research related harms, there should be provision for compensation. And if the participant is subject to any kind of harm which may or may not be related to the research, then there should be a provision for providing ancillary care in the form of appropriate reference or any other. It is the responsibility of the researcher to take care of this, any kind of harm. So with respect to an investigator initiated or a student project which we conduct in our institutions, here the sponsor is the guide or the institution, and there should be a provision to provide compensation in case of any research related harms. And there should be provisions, policies in place to tackle, to report conflicts of interest, and also how to tackle these conflicts of interests. And there should be, in case the research involves the community, there should be participation from the community in the form of a gatekeeper consent. That is, the important people who make decisions in the community should be involved in the consent process. Of course, the individual consent is also important. That also should be considered. Now, coming to the research findings, it has to be disseminated to the scientific community at large in the form of conferences or as well as in the form of publications with appropriate guidelines to be followed. Now, there should be a provision wherever there is applicable for post-research access and benefit sharing to all the participants who are involved in research. Of course, that has to be decided by the researcher as well as it should be approved by the ethics committee. So next section deals about the responsible conduct of research. So it basically it deals with the values and policies which should be in place in order to ensure that there is honesty in conducting research, accuracy in the results which are obtained, which are disseminated later, and also there should be objectivity and transparency throughout the research. So there should be a dedicated research office team which should be available in the institute, which not only takes care of the functionings of the ethics committee, but also there should be provision to manage the funding for different kind of research, other activities such as, for example, detecting of plagiarism. So there should be some software available in the institute. For example, we have an Authenticate software, and before any kind of the student research is getting before their submission, they have to go through this plagiarism. They have to get a plagiarism certificate. So all that should be, provision should be there with the institute to manage all activities related to research. And this section also talks about research misconduct, such as fabrication of data, falsification of the results, as well as plagiarism, how there should be provision to detect this and also to tackle if in case detected. And in case of collaborative research, there should be the appropriate MOUs, the Memorandum of Understanding or Material Transfer Agreement wherever necessary should be put in place. And of course, in case of interventional studies, it is a must that it has to be registered at the CTRI before recruitment of the participant. So all this will ensure that there is honesty, accuracy, and transparency in research. Next section deals with the ethical review procedures, and this talks about all the necessary requirements about the roles and responsibilities of the ethics committee and how should the ethics review procedures to be followed. This was discussed in detail in the last session by Professor Dakle sir, so I will not go into details of this. So the ethics committee reviews both science and ethics. So next section is on informed consent. So this was also discussed in previous session by Dr. Rajesh, and I will not go into detail. So this discuss in detail about all the necessary requirements, how informed consent is not just obtaining a signature on a paper, but it is a process, and it involves the two important forms, that is the participant information sheet as well as the informed consent form where the signatures are obtained. So it discusses about who is an LAR and what is the role of an LAR in the consent process, about audio-visual consents, when waiver of consent is applicable, electronic consents. So all that is discussed in detail in this section. So next section is about vulnerability. So here, the previous 2006 guidelines talked about who all are the vulnerable population. But in this 2017 guidelines, it says that it is not only based on the identity of the population, but also it is it depends. It is like the situation also can make a person vulnerable. For example, there could be some hierarchy present, so there will be a diminished autonomy, or all children are considered to be vulnerable population because they are not completely capable of protecting their own interests. So there is a risk of that they could be exploited unduly. So there should be provision of the risk mitigation in such population. So that has been discussed in detail under this section, that additional safeguards have to be put in place and that should be presented to the ethics committee. So ethics committee should consider these risk mitigation processes which are put in place, and then they approve this kind of research on vulnerable population. Next section deals with the clinical trials of drugs and other interventions. So it talks about various interventions such as drugs, vaccines, biosimilars, or any other socio-behavioral health interventions, or even traditional systems of medicine, and what are all the provisions which should be considered while conducting such kind of research. All the necessary guidelines in addition, such as the GCP guidelines, Declaration of Helsinki, and we know that now it is the NDCT guidelines 2019. So all this have to be followed in case of clinical trials. And the clinical trial should always be preceded by preclinical studies. There should be adequate information supporting data to say that the drug is or the intervention is efficacious, as well as there is less harm to the participants. So adverse effects should be reported timely. All that is described, I'm sure it will be discussed in the next session on NDCT. So, and whenever a placebo is used, there should be adequate justification, and also protection of participants should be put in place. All this is discussed in this section. So next sections, two sections deals with public health research and the social science and behavioral research. So here, if you see, the benefits and risks are not only applicable to the individual, but also the community also is considered here, and different kinds of designs could be applicable with respect to public health research and social science research. So the ethics committee members should be aware of all these different designs and how to review such kind of studies. When necessary, expert opinion can be sought from subject experts who will guide the ethics committee members in reviewing such kind of researches. So here the community should, wherever possible, the gatekeeper consent should be taken, as well as the individual consent should be taken when such kind of researches are being conducted. Next section deals with the human genetic testing and research. So here, again, it is important that several provisions should be put in place, because the risks here are more, especially with respect to confidentiality of the data, because it could have some implications, social stigma or other implications for the participants. So there should be adequate counseling provisions which are put in place, and what kind of research should be done is also described. For example, there are some prohibited researches. For example, research about sex selection with respect to the fetus, or doing some embryo manipulation. Such kind of researches are prohibited, so that should not be done. And in case of genetic therapy, it is considered a research because there is no approval given as such to the gene therapies. So it should, any gene therapy should be considered a research, and appropriate provision of the which is described in these guidelines should be put in place. So with respect to the diseases which have multifactorial causations or which are late onset diseases, so the revealing results in such kind of situations is of concern and it is of worry. So there should be adequate provision for appropriate counseling, and it should also be decided whether such kind of results need to be revealed. But even if revealed, appropriate just means the explanations to be provided in addition to the counseling to the participants. And in case of publications of pictures or pedigrees, then there should be a reconsent taken if this was not informed to in the initial consent process. And when the relatives, information about the relatives, etc., are being revealed, then they become the secondary participants, and their consent is also important to be taken. So next section, it deals about the biological materials, biobanking, and data sets. So this biobanking is it has a huge potential of research. So there are some guidelines which how this kind of research should be conducted. So these biological materials refers to both data as well as the biological samples which could be prospectively collected, or it could be left over from the earlier studies or clinical services. So informed consent should talk about the benefit sharing and the commercial value. So privacy, confidentiality is very important in this kind of research. Material transfer agreement should be in place whenever sharing of material occurs, whether within the country or outside the country. There is also discussion about biobank governance with SOPs and guidelines which should be in place, and technical authorization committee which oversees such kind of research. So the participants here are the owners of this kind of samples, and biobanks are the custodians. So the researcher is neither owner or custodian of the samples which are obtained for research from biobanks. So there is also mention about a multi-layered consent when there is a provision of future storage of these samples, okay, long-term storage, then consent should include all this, a broad consent which says any kind of research could be done, or specific consents for particular diseases, or about recontacting the participant for future research, or they can blindly refuse to allow for future research, and also about provision of results sharing. So the last section deals with the research during humanitarian emergencies and disasters. So here this is an emergency situation. So whenever such anticipation of such disasters is there, then preemptive research preparation must be done well in advance by the researcher, should be discussed in the ethics committees, and meticulous documentation becomes very important here, and also the confidentiality of data is important here. Some of the challenges which could be encountered in such research is obtaining a valid informed consent, because decision making is compromised in such situations. So there should be provision for mass sensitization programs. So risk of stigmatization, exploitation is always there. So there should be appropriate provisions of confidentiality of the data. So urgent approvals may be required by the researchers in such situations. So the ethics committee should have some provision for expedited reviews, but it should be followed by full review, and careful monitoring should be in place. And there could be affecting the ongoing research, which happened during COVID also. So this ongoing research may be suspended, but the researchers should inform the ethics committee. So all this is discussed here. So those were the 12 different sections, and the full in detail discussions you can refer to the ethics. So if there is time, I could look at one or two scenarios.
Yeah, we have left with 2 minutes.
Okay, so I'll just quickly rush through. So this scenario I wanted to discuss about published study in acute mania, that is the condition. So there the researchers they stopped the medications and they used risperidone or placebo. So the question was, what is the principal ethics which is violated here? So this is about placebo, when to use placebo. I just wanted to stress upon that. You can look at the guidelines for when placebo can be used. So here that was unethical here in this study. The other study I will not go into detail. This is about diminished autonomy when the HOD of a department conducts study on their own students. So that is what this case scenario was. So this comes under minimal risk. So consent should be taken. If consent is waived because it's only an educational intervention, then there should be adequate measures which are taken care of. So that would vulnerable population and diminished autonomy and the risk categorization, which are discussed in detail. So these are additional guidelines which you will need to follow depending upon the kind of research in addition to the ICMR guidelines. So I will summarize the last two slides. The 2017 guidelines, they are expanded operational and contemporary revision of the 2006 guidelines. So there is importance given to participant protection, especially with respect to the vulnerable populations. The what safeguard should be in place. And there is an introduction of responsible conduct of research section here. And in addition, there are other sections like biobanking, genetics, all that, which have been introduced. And the fundamental principles, the 4 principles, have to be taken into consideration while conducting research on human participants. There should be a written protocol which has to be reviewed and approved by the ethics committee before starting the study, and the dignity, safety, rights of the participants must be protected, and these guidelines must be followed whenever a research is conducted on humans, in addition to other guidelines as and when required. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I will be happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Dr. Jayanti, for very elaborative and detailed discussion and explanation on the ICMR 2017 guidelines.
Thank you, sir.
If you have a questions, please type in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. First, raise hand also. In the meantime, I'm putting up 2 questions from the chat. The first one is the ethics committee related for the research being planned on the data from hospital files, which is retrospective?
Sir, can you please repeat, sir?
Yeah, do we need ethics committee permission for using
Okay. Retrospective data, yes, definitely all research have to go through the ethics committee. Even research with retrospective data have to go through ethics committee. Of course, the researcher can ask for a waiver of consent provided the data, the personal identity information is not collected and there is anonymization put in place. Then a waiver of consent can be asked for retrospective data collection. Of course, the ethics committee has to approve it. Only then waiver of consent is applied.
So this was by Dr. Jasleen Kaur. Next is by Arjun Saha. What is social responsibility?
Social responsibility is like, for example, when you conduct a research in our country and you use some, for example, some tools of which is applicable to the Western population. Okay, so when you use such kind of tools, you have to ensure that it is accordance to our cultures and the beliefs, and the people are comfortable answering those questions and they are relevant to our own customs and social practices.
Thank you. Next is by Dr. Didi. Is gatekeeper consent required for educational intervention study among healthcare professionals?
Gatekeeper, it depends upon the nature of the intervention. Okay, so among healthcare professionals, I don't think it is necessary here because you will be taking an individual consent. Gatekeeper is applicable when you do in a community or in a vulnerable populations such as tribal communities or other communities. There, the gatekeeper consent is important in addition to individual consent.
By Dr. Gautam is asking something simple. Is student initiated research, who is the sponsor?
Student initiated, as I had mentioned, it is the guide and the institution.
Okay. I don't see any hands raised, but in the chat, I'm looking if you're ready. Please do not mark your presence and don't say I am present. Your login is a present. This is interfering with the flow of discussion on the chat. Use chat for the questions, comments, and queries only. Next is by Radhika Jindal. Is ethical clearance required for presenting a case report or case series in a conference?
It is good to get the ethical consent, okay? But in case supposing it was missed, so then, but you can apply to the ethics committee, giving all the details that there will not be any breach of confidentiality on that, but the ethics committee will take a call. But it's always better to obtain a consent, that is ethical approval.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Abhimanyu, Dr. Sirijan, we just said, please do not type, I am present, I am present. That is not needed. So I was thinking about Dr. Jayanti, ICMR guidelines 2017, and now we already have NDCT 2019,
Yes,
and
sir.
we are in 2026. Maybe
Yes.
it's a time also for revision because
Yes, sir. I
Yes,
think.
madam. Yes, sir. Just 2 days back, we met to Dr. Holi Mathur, and according to her, they are going to revise this ICMR guideline 2017 for the
yeah,
next year. So there
yeah,
may be a new guidelines in the year 2027,
yeah, it's much
according to the
needed,
madam.
9 years.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I don't see any more questions. There's one more just now. Shashi Kumar Singh, can there be more than one ethics committee for approval at one center?
Yes, there can be additional committees depending upon the need of that institute. Of course, they have to follow a similar kind of SOPs, and according to the nature of the protocols which they are reviewing, there can be additional provisions in the
Yeah.
SOP.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
Thank you,
I
sir.
don't, yeah. Can you raise your hand also? We know that who is. Hello. Or you can unmute and ask. Hello. No, we don't have anything else. So I hand over to the next moderator for the next session. There's one
Thank
hand.
you.
What?
Thank you, Badiyal sir and Jayanti madam.
Thank
You
you,
have
sir.
finished your talk within time specific period. Thank you so much to both of you. Now I request Dr. Gosavi sir to introduce today's second speaker, Dr. Kadikar madam. The session will be of 25 minutes followed by question and answer session for 10 minutes. Over to Dr. Devesh Gosavi sir for introduction of speaker Dr. Mudalini Kaidkar madam. Over to Devesh.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm honored to introduce Dr. Mudalini Kalikar, who happens to be my colleague and a friend. We both were there at GMC Nagpur. First of all, let me congratulate her on being National Spotlight Award from all of us. Everybody is quite aware of her credentials. She is a professor in pharmacology, Government Medical College, Bhandara, Maharashtra. She is the member of IEC GMC Nagpur. She is the member of Subject Expert Committee of DCGI New Delhi, member of Academic Board, our NPT. She is trained by NABH on GCP and NDCT, and we have attended many of her workshops in our area. She has received Hall of Fame Award contribution to EC of ISCR in 2022, 24, and 25, that is 3 times. She has got 65 publications in her name in different national and international journals. And she's a life member of NPT, FERCI, and ISCR. Now let me invite one of the most respected lady in the field of clinical research and GCP, Dr. Mudalini Kalikar. Please, madam.
Am I audible and my presentation visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so a very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you, Dr. Devesh, for such a kind introduction. And at the outset, I would also like to thank NPT, especially Dr. Kamal sir, Dr. Ganesh Dakle sir, and Dr. Sharma for this wonderful opportunity. I will be talking on New Drug and Clinical Trial Rule 2019. So this is just a presentation overview where I will be covering on what is the rule about, the salient features, and the new changes brought in by this rule. So this is the document that regulates import, manufacture, and all the activities related to the conduct of clinical trials in India. It was released by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in March 2019, and it is effective as of the date of publication, with the exception of chapter 4, which is a new chapter, new introduction in our regulation ethics committee for biomedical and health research, and it was released 4 months later in September. So this document was released with the aim to promote clinical research in India, have a predictable, transparent, and effective regulations for clinical trial, and very important is to make faster accessibility of new drugs to Indian population. There are 13 chapters and 8 schedules, and this rule is applicable to all new drugs, investigational new drugs for human use, clinical trials, BA/B studies, and also ethics committee. So with this regulation, the earlier regulation that regulated clinical trial in India, so the earlier regulation was the Schedule Y, it stands cancelled. Okay, so now the newer regulation is NDCT 2019. So in my presentation, I will be focusing on the salient feature of the chapters and schedules in the interest of time. So chapter 1 is preliminary. So the important thing about this chapter is that we have many new definitions introduced in this regulation. Biomedical and health research, it is for the first time that our regulation has defined it, and they have clearly differentiated it from clinical trial. A new drug, the definition has been modified. There are addition of clauses 4 and 5 in the new drug definition. They have defined investigational new drug, academic clinical trial, orphan drug, post-trial access. This is very new in our regulation, similar biologic, and also they have defined a trial participant. So IND or investigational new drug. What is it? It is a new chemical or biological entity which has not been approved for marketing as a drug in any country. Now the new drug, as I've already told you, that new drug has been defined in our earlier regulation as well. But this regulation has modified the definition of a new drug. So in the new definition, most of the old definition is retained, and new parts are inclusion of phytopharmaceuticals. And they have added clause 4 and clause 5, which includes SR and MR formulations, that is sustained release, modified release formulation, new drug delivery system, and biological products, which will be considered as perpetual new drugs. So let us see in total the definition of new drug. So a drug including active pharmaceutical ingredient or phytopharmaceutical drug which has not been used in the country to any significant extent. Drug approved by a central licensing authority for certain claims and now proposed to be marketed with modified or new claims. A fixed dose combination of 2 or more drugs which is approved separately for certain claims and now proposed to be combined for the first time in a fixed ratio, or the ratio of ingredients in the approved combination is proposed to be changed. So these 3 clauses were included in the old definition except for the inclusion of phytopharmaceutical drug. Clause 4 and 5, these are additions. And as I've told you, the clause 4 includes modified sustained release formulation and clause 5 includes biological. And this will be considered as new drug for lifetime. So here, this slide is very important and I would like to emphasize that with the definition of new drug, it is clear that drugs other than drug referred to clause 4 and 5, that is drug referred in first 3 clauses, will be considered as new drug for a period of 4 years, while as drugs included in clause 4 and 5 will be deemed to be a new drug even after 4 years of initial approval. So this point is very important. Or in other words, we can say that SR, MR formulations and biologics will be considered as a new drug even after 4 years of initial approval. Orphan drug, our regulations as for the first time defined orphan drug, where they say that orphan drug is a drug intended to treat a rare condition which affects less than 5 lakh persons in India. The important thing is to encourage the sponsors or pharma companies to manufacture it. They haven't put any fee for the conduct of clinical trial, and also there is a provision for accelerated and expedited approval. Then the post-trial access. Now, what does this mean, post-trial access? As the name suggests, post-trial means after completion of the trial, and access is availability. So making a new drug or IND drug available to the trial participants after the completion of the clinical trial, through which the said drug has been found to be beneficial to the trial participants during his participation in clinical trial for such period as considered necessary by the investigator and ethics committee. However, this post-trial access, whenever it is to be provided by the sponsor, they have laid down, the regulation has laid down certain conditions or circumstances. So in only these circumstances, post-trial access can be provided where the clinical trial is conducted for an indication for which no alternative therapy is available. The trial participant should have consented in writing to use it, and the trial participant must certify in writing that the sponsor shall have no liability for post-trial use of the drug. What does this last point mean, which is very important? It means that if the participant is undergoing any untoward adverse event or a serious adverse event, the compensation or the medical management will not be provided by the sponsor. He is not liable in providing it. Another very important new definition is biomedical and health research. As I have already told you, this regulation has clearly differentiated BHR from clinical trial. So biomedical and health research includes studies on basic applied operational research or clinical research, which are designed primarily to increase scientific knowledge about disease and condition, their detection cause, their evolving strategies, etc. But it does not include clinical trial. So in other words, we can say that except for clinical trial, whatever else research we are doing, it comes under the umbrella of biomedical and health research. Now, I don't know whether you are aware of this term academic clinical trial. So it is different from the clinical trial, regulatory clinical trial. And what are the differences? You can just see whatever is highlighted in red. So that is very important. Academic clinical trial, definitely it is a clinical trial, but it is a clinical trial of a drug which is already approved for certain claims, initiated by any investigator, academic or research institution for a new indication, new route of administration, new dose or doses form. And very important is the result of such trials are intended to be used only for academic or research purpose and not for seeking approval from regulatory authorities. So for example, let us take an example of metformin. What is it approved for? Definitely, it is approved for diabetes mellitus. You all are aware of this. While doing literature search, I came across that it is helpful in hypertension. And so I thought of using metformin in hypertension. Okay, so my intention was for research and not to market it for commercial purpose. Okay, so then use of metformin for hypertension when this research is done by me only purely for academic or research purpose, I may call it as academic clinical trial, because this is something new indication for metformin. Let us have some MCQs very fast. Okay, orphan drug means a drug intended to treat a condition which affects more than 10 lakh persons in India. What do you say? It is a true or false? You can type in the chat box. Okay, so very good. It is false. There is no liability on sponsor in case of post-trial excess in case if any SAE occurs. Is it true or false? Some are saying true, some are saying false. Okay, it seems that there's confusion. Okay, so let's so clear the confusion. There's no liability on the sponsor in case of post-trial, excess if any SAE occurs. I've already told you that the sponsor is not liable to pay any compensation. Okay. Definition of new drug as per NDCTR 2019 includes phytopharmaceutical. Is it true or false? Okay, very good. True. Yes, it is true. Yes. Drugs other than drugs referred to in clause 4 and 5 of the new drug definition shall be considered as new drug for a period of how many years? This you have to type. So just type how many years? Very good, very good. It is not 5, it is 4 years, okay? 4 years. Investigator initiated trial of a drug already approved for certain claim, tried for a new indication where the result of such trial are intended to be used only for academic or research purpose. Will fall under the category of, just type it, ABC. What is it? Yeah, very good. Okay, you understand. It is academic clinical trials. Okay, thank you for the response. So chapter 2, moving ahead, it talks about authorities and officers, and there's delegation of power of central licensing authority, nothing much important for us. Chapter 3, which talks about ethics committee for clinical trials and BA/BE studies. Okay, so here I will be highlighting only the changes, okay, because this topic has already been covered in detail by Dr. Dakle. So what are the important changes as far as the constitution of ethics committee is concerned with this new rule? So in the constitution, what they have mandated is that the constitution of ethics committee, whenever it is constituted as per the rule 7, it is mandatory that there should be one women member. Okay, so it is mandatory you should have one women member in the constitution. Second important change is that at least 50% of the members should not be affiliated with the institution or organization. Suppose, for example, my institution has 10 members, so at least 5 members should be outside the institution. The other important change which emphasizes on the training of ethics committee members, it says that provided any member who has not successfully completed training and developmental programs shall be disqualified to hold the post of the member of the ethics committee and shall cease to be a member of such committee. So they have a use what should I say? The language is like emphasizing the importance of training. And lastly, any change in the constitution of EC, it is to be informed to the regulatory authority within 30 working days. As far as registration is concerned, it is the same. There's not much difference except for the validity period. They have increased to 5 years. So once you get registered with the CDSCO, now your registration of the ethics committee will be valid for the 5 years. They have given the application forms, etc., in which you have to fill up and you'll get the approval in CT02. In case if your registration is going to expire, what you have to do is that you have to make an application for renewal of registration 90 days prior to the date of expiry of registration. So this is very important, where you have to do it 90 days prior. Now, Chapter 4, Ethics Committee for Biomedical and Health Research. Now, let me tell you, and I have told you earlier as well, that this is a new chapter. Earlier, biomedical and health research was not at all regulated. And now with this regulation, even the ICMR 2017 guideline is regulated. Why? Because for biomedical and health research, it is recommended that we should be referring, or any institution or organization which is involved in biomedical and health research should be referring to the National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research involving human participants by ICMR. So that is the 2017 guidelines. Now, this is also very new, where the ECs which are reviewing biomedical and health research, they need to be registered with the Department of Health Research under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So by this time, I know that all the institutions, almost all the academic institutions are carrying out biomedical and health research, and your EC must be registered with the Department of Health Research. So earlier this was not there. This is very new in this regulation. So EC has to oversee the study, and the SAE and compensation are to be dealt by the EC as per the guidelines, National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research involving human participants by ICMR. When we see Chapter 5 is about clinical trial and BA/BE studies, where they have divided it into two parts. Part A is about clinical trial and Part B is about BA and BE studies. What very important about this chapter is about the timelines they have given for application of new drug and investigational new drug. These timelines are for our regulatory authorities, okay? So in case of a clinical trial where the drug is discovered, researched and manufactured as well as marketed in India, our regulatory authority, that is CDSCO, is to grant permission, rejection or query in how many days? It is only 30 working days, okay? What if our regulatory authority is not responding in 30 working days? It is to be considered as automatic approval, which is called as deemed approval, if you don't get any response in 30 working days, that is the sponsor. So this is a welcome step to encourage new drug development in India. And of course, they have decreased the timelines to make faster accessibility of drugs to Indian population. In such case, the applicant has to intimate to the licensing authority about initiation of the trial in the form which is mentioned in the regulation. Now for other clinical trials, okay, and new drugs, these regulation requires that the regulatory authority must respond in 90 working days. With the third amendment rule, which was released in 2022, again, this has been given deemed approval, again, a welcome step. And here also, the sponsor has to inform the CLA about the initiation of the trial. Now, we all know that any clinical trial, we need EC approval. Without EC approval, you cannot start it. It is likely that some of the institutions may not be having their own ethics committee. What is to be done then? Who can accord approval to such clinical trials? Okay, so it is the ethics committee of another trial site. provided the ethics committee owns the responsibility. So independent ethics committee can accord approval such to clinical trials. However, it should be constituted as mentioned in the Rule 7 of NDCT, and it should be located in the same city within 50-kilometer radius of the trial site, and it should oversee, monitor the clinical trial, and it should be responsible for the right, safety, and well-being of the trial participants. Academic clinical trial, I would just like to mention one point. We already know about it. Whenever you are conducting an academic clinical trial, you might be conducting, so you don't require to take permission from our regulatory authority, the Central Licensing Authority or the Drug Controller General of India. So, but sometimes it may happen that the ethics committee is in doubt whether such product or the investigational drug might be used for commercial purpose. If you have any doubt, in case the ethics committee is having doubt, it may submit it to the CLA or inform the regulatory authorities. There's a new amendment in 23 where the clinical research organizations, which are the organizations which are supporting the sponsors in conducting the clinical trial activity at the trial sites, they also need to be registered with the CDSCO for oversight. Chapter 6, now coming to chapter 6, which is very important, and it talks about the compensation, okay? So there's no significant change in payment of compensation in case of clinical trial related injury or death or the process of determination of causality assessment. Only minor practical changes are there in the safety reporting process. So let us first see, whenever we are talking of compensation, the first important term is about the serious adverse event. So you all must be knowing it. It is an untoward medical occurrence during the clinical trial, which results in 5 outcomes. First is death, hospitalization of a trial participants, where the trial participant is outdoor participant or healthy, or it may be prolongation of hospitalization in case he is already admitted, permanent disability, significant disability or incapacity, congenital anomaly or birth defect, and it might be a life-threatening event. So these 5 outcomes, if they are occurring in clinical trial, we will definitely call it as a serious adverse event. There are definite reporting timelines for SAs, okay? If an SA is occurring in clinical trial, according to our regulations, we need to report them according to these timelines only, okay? So the stakeholders, like if investigator has to report within 24 hours of occurrence of SEA to whom? Sponsor, the ethics committee, as well as the Drug Controller General of India. And he has to prepare a detailed follow-up report, and within 14 days, he has to report it to the head of the institution, the ethics committee, as well as the DCGI. Sorry, the sponsor has to report within 14 days of knowledge of occurrence of SAE to the head of institution, the ethics committee and DCGI, and the ethics committee within 13 calendar days of the receipt of SAE has to report it only to the Drug Controller General of India. Whenever we are talking about compensation, this line is very important. Okay, so compensation, whenever we talk of compensation, it is applicable only in case of injury or death, which is related to clinical trial or bioavailability and bioequivalence study. So compensation clause is applicable only if the injury or death is related to clinical trial, okay? Otherwise, if there is no relatedness, there is no compensation by the sponsor. So because of this, we should know what is the meaning of clinical trial related injury, okay? What does it mean? Because only for clinical trial related injury, this compensation clause is applicable. So clinical trial related injury, we may call it if it has occurred because of adverse effect of the IP, if it is because of approved violation of the approved protocol or scientific misconduct or negligence. It may be adverse effect to a child in utero due to participation of parent in child. Clinical trial procedure, which is involved in the trial. Adverse effect due to concomitant medication, which is excluding standard of care as necessitated by the part of protocol. Not providing the required standard of care, which was available to the participant, okay? And failure of investigational product to provide the intended therapeutic effect where the required standard care or rescue medication, although it was available, was not provided as per the clinical trial protocol. So now you have a quiz whether it is related or not. Okay, start typing. A patient dies during liver biopsy after consenting for a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease trial, and liver biopsy was a requirement of the clinical trial protocol. IP was not yet started. What is it? It is a related or not related? Okay, so majority of you are saying it is not related, but it is related because one of the clauses, any trial procedure which is required by the clinical trial protocol and it is relating to clinical trial injury, then we may call it as clinical trial related. Second scenario, a patient driving bike, car is coming from a wrong side, hits, develops fracture, whether it is related or not related to the clinical trial. Yes, very good. It is not related to the clinical trial. Yes, got it. So, because there's an obvious reason for the fracture and the accident, so it is not related. Scenario third, asthma patient worsens as IP didn't provide adequate response. Rescue medication not given. The patient was hospitalized. Whether it is related or not related. Okay, yes. Okay. Got it. Okay. So definitely it is related where the investigational drug has not provided adequate response. So it comes in that clause. Fourth, IP is to be stored at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. Temperature was 35. Injection given intramuscularly. Patient develops anaphylaxis. Whether it is related or not, definitely it is related. Why it is related? Because there is a violation of the protocol, isn't it? It was required that to store the IP at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. Fifth scenario, depression patient gets assigned to placebo arm. Worsens during trial, commits suicide. Whether it is related or not. Now you answer. Yes, very good. It is related. Yes. Okay. Yes. You got it. And what is the situation here? Adequate care, standard of care was not provided to the patient of depression, right? You cannot put a patient of depression on a placebo arm, right? Last, hospitalized due to fracture after corticosteroids was given to the patient in inflammatory bowel disease trial. Whether it is related or not? Yes. Okay. Very good. Yes. Got it. Yes. So, and what is the clause here? It is very simple, adverse effect of the investigational product. Okay. So thank you. Okay. So what is our regulation rule 39 to 41 saying about compensation in case of clinical trial injury? So in case of a clinical trial related injury, there are two possibilities. Either the patient may die where death has occurred, or the patient may have some injury which is other than death. If death is occurring, who will get the compensation? It is the legal heir. Who will be providing the compensation? It is the sponsor, because he is the one who has taken permission from our regulatory authority. In case if the injury is other than death, it may be anything, permanent disability, who will getting the compensation? It is the trial participant. Who will be giving the compensation? It is again the sponsor, and this is mentioned in rule 42. Okay. So in case of injury other than death, the sponsor has also to provide free medical management for all the expenses incurred for the management of the trial participants. Okay. Now, second is the medical management. Okay, medical management is something where you are not decided till the time whether the injury is related or not. So in that case, the sponsor has to provide the medical management to the trial participant till such time it is established that the injury is not related to the clinical trial or whichever is earlier. So for biomedical and health research, as I have told you, we are always confused. We feel that there should not be any, there is no clause for compensation and we need not report the essays, etc. But it is not like that. All this is mentioned in chapter 4, and you have to follow the national ethical guidelines for biomedical and health research, which has mentioned that compensation is to be provided in case of biomedical and health research, where the research proposal is supposed to have inbuilt provision for mitigating research related harm, and the medical management should be free if the harm is related to the research, and compensation should be given to the participants. The essay reporting timelines for the research that you and me are doing, which is biomedical and health research, you have to report it to the the ethics committee within 24 hours of knowledge, and 14 days is also to be reported to the ethics committee. Okay, so in the interest of time, let us move ahead. Chapter 7 is about bioavailability and bioequivalence study. Then chapter 8 is about the manufacture of new drugs or IND for clinical trials or bioavailability and bioequivalence study. And then chapter 9 is about import of new drugs and IND for clinical trial, bioavailability and bioequivalence study. Chapter 10 has something important for us, where it talks about import or manufacture of new drugs for sales and distribution, where it is talking about a clinical trial waivers, where they have given certain situations where a clinical trials can be waived off, like if the drug is approved in some other countries and the global trial is going on in India, and this drug is indicated for life-threatening or serious diseases or serious conditions. Okay, so in such case, phase 4 clinical trials may be required and it can be relaxed under certain conditions. Chapter 9 has something new and important, where Rule 84, which is about import of an unapproved new drug. And with this new Rule 84, you and a medical officer or government hospital may import new drug for compassionate use for the treatment of patients who are suffering from life-threatening diseases or for unmet medical needs. But however, it should be approved for marketing in the country of origin. Coming to the schedules, I will be just very fast going through it. First schedule is talking about the general principles and practices of clinical trial. Second schedule is about requirements and guidelines for permission to import or manufacture of new drug for sale or to undertake clinical trial, where they have given the provision of accelerated approval and expedited approval. So there, for the first time, we have this provision of accelerated approval. Accelerated means fast approval, and this can be given for a new drug or a disease which is, if the disease is rare or very severe, there is no alternative treatment available. Post-marketing studies shall be required for this. Expedited approval, and this is the provision for the sponsor, where sponsor can apply for expedited approval if he is having a new drug which is developed for disaster or defense, or it is intended to treat serious or life-threatening conditions. Then third schedule, the table 4, which is an IU investigator undertaking, it has to be modified. The SAE reporting table is now table 5. Earlierly it was appendix 5. Okay, fourth schedule mentions about the guidelines for conduct of BAB studies. Fifth schedule is about the post-market assessments, how it can be done, and there are various ways of doing post-marketing assessment. Sixth schedule is all dealing with the fees payable for license, permission, and registrations, etc. Seventh schedule is very important because it is talking about the compensation formulas, how to calculate the compensation. Like earlier, we have talked about the compensation clauses. Now, if the compensation is to be given by the sponsor in case of related trial injury, how to calculate it? So for this, we have various formulas which have taken into consideration two important factors to ensure the objectivity and applicability in diverse situations. So two factors they have used, that is age and baseline risk. For death, the formula for compensation which is given by our regulatory authority in case the death is occurring because of clinical trial related injury is B into F into R upon 99.37, where B is the base amount, it is fixed 8 lakhs. F is the factor depending upon the age of the participant, and R is the risk factor. So F factor, the table is given. The first column shows the age and the corresponding factor. For age 16, it is, for example, it is 228.54. Similarly, risk has been categorized into 5 categories: 0.5, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0.5 means expected survival not more than 6 months. 1 is, it is survival is 6 to 24 months. 2 is moderate risk, mild risk, and finally 4 is healthy volunteers. Okay, so this you can just have a look at this. You can just put the values. Death has occurred to a healthy volunteers who is aging 35 years. So age is 35 years. Refer to the chart. The factor comes 197.06. Risk factor, since it is healthy volunteer, will be 4. If you put the value into the formula B into F into R upon 99.37, it will come amount to 63.45 lakhs. So, okay, only I will be telling about the quantum of compensation in case of SAE other than death. You just have to remember that it will always be less than the amount that will come for death, because less death is considered as the maximum injury possible to the individual. So, in the interest of time, I won't be going into the details of the formulas for other than SAE. You can refer to NDCT 2019. Okay, so let us have quiz again. What is the fee for conducting clinical trials using an orphan drug in India as per NDCT rule 2019? Okay, very good. Yeah, I'm happy with the responses. Yes, there's no fee. And ethics committee, which is approving biomedical health research, clinical trials, and BABE studies, are required to be registered with. So you just have to type. Okay, the answer has come up. Both the Department of Health Research and the Central Drug Standard Control Organization. Okay, so if we talk of the salient features, we will just revise it. This rule has defined new timelines for review and approval of clinical trial applications. They have reduced the timelines. They have increased the application fee. 2 types of ethics committee are defined. One is reviewing clinical trial, other is reviewing biomedical and health research. The registrations, the duration of the EC, they have increased to 5 years. There is a provision for pre and post submission meeting by the sponsor with the Drug Controller General of India. They have waived local clinical trial. In certain situations, there is a condition for post-trial access of the said study drug. They have given it. There is a provision for import and manufacture of drug by government institute. There is provision of accelerated and expedited approval. Finally, coming to the conclusion, this rule definitely aims to protect the right, safety, and well-being of the participants. And they have reduced the approval timeline for clinical trials in India, which will ultimately ensure that our patients have access to faster and effective treatment, which will lead to more stability and growth in clinical research being done in India. But it definitely raises the question about safety being sacrificed for speed. So thank you, dear all, and I would be happy to answer questions, if any. I am stopping sharing. Dr. Devesh, I cannot hear you.
Over to Devesh. You made me mute, Devesh.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Mrinalini, for your information-packed lecture. Actually, it's a different workshop altogether for NDCT 2019. Covering all the topics in 35 to 40 minutes was a Herculean task, but I think you did a wonderful job. There are a few questions which I have noted. One is from Dr. Shambhavi. Which authority actually trains the ethics committee members? And I will like to add one more query from my side, and that is whether it should be an offline or online class for the EC members. Who will train them?
Okay.
Whether this,
yeah.
Please continue.
Yes. So training is very important as emphasized by our regulation, and it should be definitely done by an individual or a group of team who are trained in GCP by some competent authority, maybe NABH or other authorities. So anyone who is providing training should be well trained and experienced in good clinical practice. There are no specific guidelines as if who can train. As far as the second question is concerned, whether it is online or offline, Even an online training is good, like NPT is conducting. This is definitely a very good online training, which is acceptable to the ethics committee members. However, sometimes it happens that there are some disadvantages with online training as well, where the participants, they log in, they don't listen, and ethics committee, since they are reviewing the clinical trials or any other type of research, they need to be well acquainted. So to ensure this, you can definitely have offline, but there is no such regulation like it can be online or it can be offline. Both are acceptable by our regulatory authorities. For example, if you are submitting your registrations to CDSCO, they are definitely accepting online certificates of the ethics committee members, and DHR on ethic portal is also accepting online certificates. It all depends upon how the course is being conducted, how it is conducted, who it is conducting, and definitely the member secretary chairperson should ensure that the ethics committee members are have gained some knowledge about reviewing the protocol. They may have some test after the workshop is done, and they should be ensured. So it may be online and offline. So both have some advantages and disadvantages.
In
It depends
addition to
upon the
that,
SOP, and sometimes some
yes,
ECs may require only on offline certificates.
I am also of the same opinion. It depends on the SOP of the every ethics committee. If they are mentioning that only physical training will be accepted for clinical trial, then it is necessary. Otherwise, as mentioned by the Dr. Munalini, it is also okay that we can go ahead with the online training also.
I think Dr. Ganesh is very particular about the offline trainings in this for EC members.
Yes,
Sir,
yes,
as per
absolutely.
the
It
NMC
gives,
guidelines, they have given not given the direct indication whether it should be offline or online, but of course they have told that it should be provided by the recognized institution or organizations like NPT is a registered body, and All India Institute of Medical Science Nagpur again is a very reputed institutions. So, because many residents in across the country now they need to cover many workshop, many courses, and like ACLS and BCLS, it is not possible that they can be done online. They have to be done offline in any mode, in any condition. So the trainings like GCP, if the candidates are very attentive, then it is acceptable to through online training also. Like in the leadership of Dr. Ganesh Dhakle sir, we are conducting it at everywhere, and more than 826 participants registered this year. Very huge response we are getting.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Suraj says, in case of biomedical research, what is the basis of compensation?
Yes, it's a very good question. And the basis of compensation, where for biomedical and health research, what our regulation is saying is that we have to refer to ICMR guideline 2017. So ICMR guideline has mentioned that there should be a provision of compensation. However, like the formulas is given in NDCT for calculating compensation for trial related injury for clinical trials, there is no such formula which is given in ICMR guidelines 2017. However, the ethics committee has to take up the decision, and most of the time it may happen that we can use the same formulas for biomedical and health research as well. But it will depend on the AC's SOP, as there is no well-defined formula given in the ICMR guideline 2017.
Okay. Dr. Kavita is asking, trial of an existing drug with a new dose of the same indication needs approval from CLA or not?
Yes. So if you are having a drug which is approved and you want to use it for in a new dose, so it will be called as an academic clinical trial. Okay, academic clinical trial. And here, if you want to do it only for research purpose and you will not be using the data for any commercial purpose, you need not get an approval from the central licensing authority. It will be called as academic clinical trial. However, if the sponsor is doing this and he will be marketing it, he will be marketing it in a new dose for commercial purpose, then we call it as a clinical trial. So for research and academic purpose, if you are doing it, you are trying approved drug for new dose, definitely it is an academic clinical trial which does not require permission from CLA.
I think the last, thank you. I think the last question from Monica, who will provide compensation for academic CD? It's a routine question asked always. Who will provide compensation for academic CD?
Yes. So academic clinical trial, as the earlier presenter Jayanti madam has also emphasized upon that, whenever we are doing an academic clinical trial, a researcher is doing, the investigator is the sponsor or the institution is the sponsor. So the protocol should have inbuilt provision for the compensation. The ethics committee should be very cautious in seeing that there is some inbuilt provision for the compensation. What ICMR guideline is saying is in such cases where the institution is the sponsor, they should have some provision of corpus fund for compensating the participant in case if any trial related injury is occurring in academic clinical trial.
Okay. Dr. Ganesh, I can see two more questions. Can we take them?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Okay. If SOP of IEC doesn't mention any info on compensation, of course, this is a very different type of question. Aren't we failing as ethics committee member?
Yeah, definitely. The SOP should have the provision of compensation. It should definitely mention the provision of compensation. Even if the EC is reviewing a department, so this biomedical and health research, or even if the EC is reviewing clinical trial, and if you see, whenever you are making an application to this registration authority, they ask us to upload the SOP. And it is likely that you may get a query. This is very important point, and it is there to be mentioned in the SOP. What are the provision for compensation? How will you follow the compensation clauses? I mean, they should mention that it should be according to the NDCT 2019. That is also enough for clinical trials, or biomedical and health research guidelines, the national ethical guidelines 2017 ICMR guidelines for biomedical and health research. Even that is enough, but this should be mentioned.
Okay. Whether EC registered with only CDSCO can approve biomedical and health research?
No, not at all. It is mandatory with the 2019 regulation. It is mandatory that if the EC is reviewing biomedical and health research, you have to register yourself with the Department of Health Research.
DHR.
And an EC which is reviewing a clinical trial, ideally should not review any biomedical and health research, because now we have two different ECs and two registration authorities according to the two types of research, BHR and clinical trial. So not at all.
One question from my side, even Dr. Ganesh can also participate. Can both the ethics committee have same members?
Yeah, so
Yes.
I will take
Go
this
ahead.
question. Both the ethics committees can have same members, or you can have two different ethics committees, two different member constitution for two different ethics committee. So it will depend on the institution's take, and there is no harm in having the same constitution for both the ethics committee, or if you feel that the EC members are overburdened, you can also have a separate set of ethics committee members for the different ethics committee. So both are allowed by our regulation, and both is possible.
So that's
As
all
Dr.
from my
Dakle may
side.
add something.
Just a minute.
Okay.
As
Yeah.
mentioned by madam, both the members can be same for both ethics committee, but all the things should be different. Just like SOP should be different, circular may be different, minutes of meeting should be different, because both ethics committee are registered with the different organization, and they are having their own limitation and rules and regulation. Though the members should be same, but they have different working pattern, and it should be mentioned in SOP in respect to SOPs.
Yes, so the meetings are different. Because the meetings are different, everything else will be different only. Agenda, minutes, everything will be different. The SOP, as Dakle sir has mentioned, is definitely it is different. So
Okay, that's all from my side. Over to you, Ganesh.
Uh, Devesh, one more question is there if you want to go ahead with. We are having time.
But not on
Last.
my chat.
Okay. Just a minute. I will go ahead.
एक मिनट. Okay, yes.
If academic
If
trial is
an academic,
developing, yes, go ahead.
yes. If an academic trial is developing a novel technology and planning to market it, can EC of the institute approve it?
okay, so if it is a novel technology or a novel drug, or it is used for commercial purpose, the first thing I would like to make it clear is that it is not an academic clinical trial. It will be a clinical trial. Okay, it doesn't come under the umbrella of academic clinical trial. I have already emphasized academic clinical trial is, the first thing is that it is the approved drug, you want to use it for some new indication or new dose, and it is initiated by the researcher. Third point is there is no commercial interest. If it is a novel technique or an investigational new drug where you are using it for some commercial purpose, definitely it is a clinical trial and you will require permission from the regulatory authority. It doesn't come under the academic clinical trial.
I think Dr. Shambhavi is asking many questions. Can she open her mic and maybe more specific on what she mean by developing a novel technology? Dr. Shambhavi? Yeah, she said only thank you.
Okay. So now we are at the end of the today's session. I am very thankful to both the speakers, Dr. Jayanti Madam as well as Dr. Karikar Madam, for their excellent, concise and conceptual presentation, as well as both the moderators, Dr. Badial sir and Gosavi sir, for their nice moderation. Before conclusion for today's session, I request our national coordinator, Dr. Kamal sir, for their address to the participants. Over to Dr. Kamal sir.
Thank you, Ganesh Dhagle sir, and sincere gratitude to both the speakers, Madam Lalini Kalikar and Madam Jayanti,
Sir, thank you so much.
and both moderator Dr. Gosavi sir and Dr. Badial sir. It's really wonderful to see such an enthusiastic participation of all the GCP participants. Your interest and involvement clearly shows that your commitment to learning and strengthening your understanding for the good clinical practice. NPT is constantly making efforts for promoting the scientific environment and research and ethics environment for the researchers. And this GCP training came out under the national leader of GCP, I can say now with confidence, Dr. Ganesh Dakle sir, who is organizing this fifth GCP workshop very successfully. I encourage all of you to stay actively engaged throughout the workshop, ask questions and make most of this learning opportunity. Just a quick reminder that at the end of the workshop, all the participants would be able to download their certificate in the PDF format directly from their dashboard. Dashboard login is very, very necessary, and please ensure that our team is also available behind the scene and we are easily approachable to all of you throughout WhatsApp and through phone call. Thank you once again for being a part of this initiative. Wishing you a great learning experience ahead. Happy learning GCP. Thank you. Long live NPT. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Yes.
you, Kamal sir. Lastly, my
Yes, sir.
sincere thanks to all participants for their active participation and patience hearing. With this, now I declare that today's session is over and we will meet again for our last session on 26 March at 3 p.m. Till then, bye bye to all. Thank you.
Bye, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.